In this video, we're going to be building the most serviceable PC. The whole point of building a PC is to be able to service it or change the parts or upgrade the parts or downgrade the parts or whatever you want. Apple is the very opposite of that. You can't upgrade anything. But this PC has a few features that make servicing this PC even easier. So let's start the build.
Looking for a cheap way to license your Windows? Check out WhoKeys through the links in the video description. Make sure to use the code TN20 to get a 30% off. Paste the license to the activation settings and you're all done. This license is for Windows 10, but you can upgrade it to Windows 11 for free. They also offer Microsoft Office 19 license. Use the same code TN20 to get a 30% off. Check out WhoKeys.com in the video description below.
So the motherboard for this build is an ASRock Phantom Gaming Z790 Riptide Wi-Fi. This is one of the latest and greatest motherboards that we have, and if you haven't seen my review of this, highly recommend you go check that one out. But one of the very nice things about this is that it has Wi-Fi 7, which is a really nice feature for the creators. Some other things about this motherboard. Firstly, this top slot here is actually PCIe Gen 5, and we have a quick release or toolless design how to remove it. Boom, and we can just remove that. Toolless, easy to service. There we go. We're actually going to be using a Gen 5 drive here. So this is the ADATA Legend 970. If you haven't seen the review yet of this one, this is the fastest drive I have tested on the channel so far. So, okay, we're actually going to have to remove this little nubbin here. It's just a little rubber standoff. Come on, come off. Because we have the heatsink over this, and that takes it to the other side as well, which is just a bit thicker than normal ones. So got that in there. Now this, how we're gonna get this to the power, we'll have to see yet. I'm not sure which is the fastest or quickest route, how we're gonna get there. Maybe behind the motherboard and then coming out from the back, maybe just on the side there. We'll see. Now for the other SSD here, which will have plenty underneath here, there is quite a few M.2 slots. There's 1, 2, another 2 here, and another 2 underneath here as well. So if you're a creator and you want to have lots of storage and easily upgrade, downgrade it, to be able to do that without any cables of SATA or HDDs, this is super nice. So we're going to be using the Sabrent Rocket 4.0 drive. This is one of those SSDs that I had on my PC from like years and years ago, but this is still awesome because we're still gonna get like 4.5 gigabytes per second, something like that, read and write speeds, but it has a very high terabyte written spec, which means if we're gonna hammer it with very large files as a creator, we're gonna get that nice terabyte written spec. It's got a nice heatsink on the top there as well of copper, and then we'll have this. Now the CPU. For that, we're gonna be using the Intel 14700K. So this is the best 14th gen upgrade. This actually got an upgrade in terms of core count. Now we have 12 E-cores and then 8 P-cores. If you're looking to save some money on the CPU side, don't even look at the 14th gen. Check out the 13th gen because now it's even cheaper. This 14th gen just slashed the prices of 13th gen, which is like within a few % of the 14th gen. Sometimes no difference at all. No reason really to go for the 14th gen. So the last minute RAM choice I had here is the Team Group Delta DDR5. This is two 16 gigabyte sticks, so 32 gigabytes in total, which is slightly low for a creator. So if you can, highly recommend getting two 32 gigabyte sticks for 16 gigs in total. But I think the design for this just fits really well, so we'll try how we can do that. These run at 64 mega transfers per second, which is very high. Now, you might be saying, hey, you know, the 14th gen IMC is 5600 megatransfers per second, and didn't you just tell us that, you know, don't go over 5600 megatransfers per second? I did, but the point of this is to slightly actually test the 14th gen IMC as well. Can it run it higher than this? I think this is going to be easy to run for the 14th gen, because you can get a lot faster kits than the 64 mega transfers per second. The latency is CL40, so that's not quite the fastest. Our motherboard is pretty much ready, and we're gonna have to get ready for the case, because soon this is gonna go in the case, and we're gonna have a few things that we'll do in the case. But for now, we need to get the case out and prep that one, because that is a very key element in this build. So this is the Phanteks NV5. It's a little bit of a smaller brother to the NV7, but some of the things are even nicer with this NV5. This is black. There's a few different versions available for this, but one of the main things that you see with this case is that it doesn't come with any fans. So let me take these panels off. So as you can see, there's this front panel left here, and I believe if I do these two screws here, I should be able to take that front panel off as well. Now, this is very, very empty, and you can easily access anything you're going to be building inside here, whether it's, you know, your AIO on the top, or fans, or GPU, or PSU. There's some other tricks in the sleeve in a moment. To be able to take the whole thing off with just two screws, you're completely open to everything that you need to see inside. That is really, really good. Now, in the back over here, there is a tiny little screw in here. Now, if I undo this screw, what will happen is this panel here in the front should slide off, just like that. And we can remove this panel in here, which means that if you ever need to add a GPU cable or something like that, that you already, you know, let's say you have a modular power supply, you're getting a bigger GPU, and now you need to add something in there, to be able to just one screw in the back there, boom, take this one out and then add it inside here, or adjust the cables or something like that in there. That is a very good serviceable point as well. Then on this back panel here, if we just pull this out, ta-da, we have all of our SSD and hard drive bays accessible in here as well. So if you ever need to access these, it's very easy to pull the side panel off, this, and then voila, here they are. Another thing Phanteks does really, really well is their screws. Now, this NV5 doesn't come with a lot of screws. Some of the bigger ones come a bit easier, but if you ever need a screw and you need to dig into your plastic bag that's just everything's in there, this is a much nicer way to organize the screws and actually service your PC. Look how nicely color-coded and marked these instructions are. Now, I do have a feeling that what we'd have to do is take this out and put it through the other side like that. So it would go through that back hole in there. There we go. There's a few nubbins here on the motherboard, like this top one here and this middle one here, which would just hold the motherboard in place. Now, the only big downside with this is that when we do have to service our M.2 SSD in here, that means that we're going to have to pull that cable out from that side, which is going to be a little bit of a nightmare, because you'd have to take the motherboard out and that's not going to work. Which makes me think maybe we do need to put it through the back over here, or let's see if it does fit through the bottom there. But one thing for certain, we can't leave it like that. So it looks like this cable does fit through the bottom in here, so I'll probably just leave it down there. So the GPU can go here, and this is underneath there, and we can just hide the cable somehow just there. Another interesting thing about this motherboard is that you can put an extra standoff in the back in here, as you can see, which would mean that you've got a little bit more support for your GPU if this was down there. Now, this is not necessary, but I don't usually see that on motherboards like that, but they have added an extra one there, which is interesting. Now, let's install our cooler. For that, we're going to be using the Phanteks Glacier 1 360 D30. which means that you've got the 360mm AIO, but we're using the Phanteks D30 ARGB fans there. There are 330mm thick, 120mm wide, and this is going to give us very good performance and really nice looks in here. I'm planning to install the AIO on the top there, and then some side intake in there, and then push up in there. So basically exhaust from the top and then intake from the side. So this time the AIO cover is actually attached. To the previous version, you were able to like magnetically move it one side or the other side. They've also adjusted a little bit of how this pump block is actually put in. So they've got a bit of a different mechanism here. You don't have to screw in the bottom or clip in, or like kind of, it's a little bit different than the previous generation. They have pre-applied thermal paste in there, which we'll see how good that one's gonna be. So they're gonna go in there just like that. Now, when installing these fans, it's very important you understand how the signal works and which way it's coming from. So the signal strength, or the flow of the signal, starts from the motherboard. Motherboard's going to send the signal to the fans. And as you can see, this is signal input corner here, which we're going to install that cable that goes into the corner here. Input, then it goes through this fan, out from this fan into the other input of the other fan, and then inside here exactly the same way. So you can't just mix and match, like put one way and the other way. You'll have to have it flow exactly the right way. Also think about which way you want the cables to come out, because when you put this like on the top there or wherever you're going to put it, make sure that your cables are not going to come from the inside or from the back side, so that you can put the cables to the other side. Makes it look nice and clean. In fact, this is much easier here because there's not a lot of cables, because they all get connected together and there's one cable coming from the other side. But regardless, you don't want this cable to be in the front there, you want it to be on the other side. So here we have these screws for the radiators, and because these are 30mm thick, as you can see, we have to use special screws that will actually go through it. If you use a normal screw from like any other AIO, it's not going to go through it because these fans are thicker. But because these fans all connect together, you can cheat a little bit on this and make your servicing even easier. What I would do is put maybe 2, maybe 4 screws instead of 12 screws on this. So we're going to fix the corners, and then maybe 1 in the middle, and then let's put 1 in there as well, because all of these fans are connected together. They're not actually going to go anywhere. So by me just adding 4 screws instead of 12 screws, let's say something happens with a fan, this middle fan or that one there, and we need to replace this. All you have to do is unclip this bottom corner. You don't have to go to the motherboard and try to pull them out from the motherboard or wherever your cable routing is on the back, messing this up. Just pull this out from the corner. You can take the fans off, change one fan, put them back, clip them back together, put this one clip back on, and then everything else is connected. Only 4 screws. That is a lot quicker than usually. Now, to make this look nicer and to hide your cheating screws, it comes with these little kind of covers, so we can put them over the screws, which makes it very nice, one color, hides the screws, makes it look unified design, more minimalistic. I am liking this a lot. And then we've got corner pieces here as well that cover your screw holes from the corner. Now, this is a little bit of a counterintuitive thing here, because you do have to take these off if you want to take your screws, off. So maybe this is going to take a little bit longer, but still the looks and the servicing time, if you want to just take these off, they come off very, very easily. Just literally put your fingers underneath and they just clip off. They've just got little like knobs inside the rubber, and that's it. Now, if you want to make it even nicer, you can add these to the corners as well. So the corner design is going to be a full corner design, but you're not going to see the back of this as much. Let me think. So that's going to be on that side. These are going to be in the front. So I will put them just in the corners here, so we can just see what the design will look like. So if you look at these fans from the side, they look very nicely unified and minimalistic. Now, once you've taken these screws out from the plastic boxes, what you can do is the leftover screws, just put it in that box, and then there we go. But because I'm taking this build back apart at some point, and I might use this cooler later on, and I need these screws to be with the cooler, I'm going to put them in another bag in here. This one here has the clips for the tubes as well, which we might use to make it look nicer. So I'll take these out as well. I don't see any ASETEK's branding on there. Now this generation of Phanteks coolers does feel like a little bit of a cheaper plastic than the previous one. And interestingly, the locking mechanism looks very similar to the Enermax one. Now, I don't know if they have deal with Enermax or not, but usually this locking type of mechanism is the type that Enermax had there. And I remember these ones here looks very, very similar to there. Now, I don't know, it might be ASETEK, just interesting analysis. Before we're gonna put the cooler in, I might wanna put these power cables in first because it might get a little bit tricky there because the top panel doesn't come off now and it might cover these top PSU cables there. So the power supply we're gonna be using is the Phanteks Revolt 1000 watt power supply, 80 plus platinum power rating, but the cables come separately and you can buy the cable set separately, and this is a really nice cable set that it comes separately with. Custom cables here, cables, combs, everything here. It also comes with the 600 watt 12 volt high power cable with cable combs. That is really nice. Ooh, 2 of them. My goodness, what would you do with 2 600 watt power cables? I mean, this is 1000 watt power supply, 600 watts, that's gonna take us to 1200 watts out of PCIe cables. I broke the box, but it had the zipper on the other side. Well, never mind. So one box is basically just GPU cables. Here's our one CPU cable. Here's our second CPU cable. These are really nice, braided and black. We need some kind of black GPU. Right now, you guys are saying ARC A580, RTX 4080, ProWatt 4080, 4070. Well, I'll put the combs just over there because that goes on the other side. So there you can see our CPU cables really nicely looking there. These cables we can pull through the other side as well and hide them there. But while we're at it, let's sort out our CPU and the cooler so that the cooler can actually stick there and not like flip around when we're doing other bits. So this is the back plate, which actually has a little sticker on this foam here. So this is the foam pad that will just sit on the back of the CPU socket there. And then these sides actually slide sideways, so you can have the LGA 1200 or 1700 on the side, whichever Intel platform you're using. Then find the screw box that says Intel LGA 1700 on it, and once you've put 2 corner screws in, it will actually stay there and doesn't come off. Now, I didn't actually take the sticker off and stick it in the back of the socket plate in there, because another, serviceable tip is if anything happens with your cooler and you need to replace it or put another cooler in, if it's stuck in there, you might have struggle like removing it. It might be easier, yes, to install it at first, but when you need to change anything, it's a little bit more complicated. To me, it wasn't very hard to hold in place once I put the screws in from the other side, so I'll just leave it hanging there. All we do now is take this cover off, because thermal paste is already applied. We'll just lower this in place, doing like a little wiggle. So the RGB header goes through the back, but now we can actually lift it up. I do have something special here. I do have some fans here, reversed fan plates, regular, reversed of the Phanteks D30. So they're gonna go in here, one up, and then one out from the back there. But I do have something special as well, which I'm not sure exactly how to do this, but this is the Phanteks NV5 Premium dRGB Kit. Okay. This is just magnetic and slides on the bottom here. I'll take this bottom. Which way does it come off? Okay, this has to go after I put this one in. Okay, The top RGB kit here, if you've got an AIO installed, it's a little bit tricky to get it through here because it has to kind of clip behind here, and then just a little bit you'll see like underneath here. So what I'll have to do is take these off. I've also slid the radiator like as forward as possible, because then the tubes will run a little bit nicer. If they're there, there's going to be a bigger kind of a sag in here, but this way they look and slide much nicer. So that's going to be reversed fan. All you've got to do is make sure that the signal input corner is in the right place, because then the cable can go right in the back there. Okay, here's a little cheat that I always do pretty much. I almost never install 4 fan screws because I think 2 are just fine for most of the cases. So if you do need quick serviceability, install 2 fan screws. Now, this side RGB kit goes on the bottom here. So there's literally just slids down there. And we've got the ARGB fan header, or header there. Then this, I believe, goes on the side there. Okay. It slides in nicely all on the side here as well, and connects up with the top one very, very easily. So if you undo these cables, you can see that the longer one can go to the next piece, but then there's 2 short ones that connect up in this corner here. If you connect these up, then we have like the RGB from all of this front and on the side there. Okay. Then this is the last piece. Then that probably goes on the other side somewhere. So before I do these, I think I'm gonna go and do some more of the cables of the motherboard to see if this actually lines up there. So this is the normal Phanteks fan here. So the signal corner is gonna go on the top right. So now a few more cables that go to the motherboard. One of them is the power supply to the motherboard, because then I can actually put this in there as well, the shroud that goes in there. But let's see if we can do this one first. Oh, these cables are really, really nice. So easy to bend, and the cable combs and everything make it look so nice. Okay, I've got this here now. So these rubber grommets here, take that one off and this one off. Okay, once you've slid it down and down, because basically there's little screws on the back here. So there's these screws on both sides. As you can see, one on this side and one on there. And they go on these holes, and you've got like 2 options whether it's going to go kind of hit there or a little bit lower, because my motherboard ATX power is actually a little bit higher. I'm going to go with the higher holes. So you just have to slide it in there, kind of line it up in there, and there we go. Pull it back, and then now that's done. And then the thumb screw that was in there just goes into this part in there that holds the whole thing tight. What we'll have to do now is some cable management. So put the rest of the cables through for the motherboard. The rest of the cables that we need for the PSU and other bits, we're gonna have to put them in as well. And then finally, our power supply is here. As you can see, for this power supply, there's only one PCIe 5.0 cable that goes in there, even though our cable came with 2 of them. And I believe that's because this also has the 1200 watt power supply option for this Revolt. And that one will probably have 2 of these if you want to run like 2 of the, I don't know, RTX 4090s or A6000 Ada GPUs. So that's the interesting bit. When you slide the power supply in, you can actually pull the cables in afterwards or do it sideways like this. So let's do some cable management. Just to simplify also the RGB of all of this. So all of the RGB kit that we put on for this case, the dRGB, kit for NV5 for this exact PC case. So all of the kits like from this top and from the side and from the bottom of the motherboard, they'll all connect together. And then basically there's going to be one RGB header that's all of this strip, as you can see here, that goes all the way around on the top there as well. That goes onto this little hub that comes also in the RGB case. One in here, and then you have these little connector plugs that come with this hub. So you just slide them in there, and then you have this normal Phanteks 3-pin ARGB header like on the side where you can connect the other bits in. So all of the case strips go in number 1, and then number 2, the numbers aren't, you know, important, you can put them in any port. And number 2 is the motherboard cover there, so this bit over there. And then the third one, you can put any other ones, because we've got loads of fans, I might like slot them in there as well. So this is the output. You can have a signal input that goes from this side, which as you can see we'll have in here as well, and then SATA power from one side. So it needs a little bit of power to power all of these LEDs, extra power because the motherboard isn't, you know, powerful enough to send power to all of these. You might have some flickering or not all of the lights shine up. And then this one here, so you can actually expand this anywhere you want as well. So what I might do is add all of these together so that the case on the top there is actually an RGB switch, so I can control all of the RGB just from the case, so I don't have to install anything on the motherboard. Now all of our RGB is connected here, and we've got actually one extra as well. And the cool thing is this little like a hub is magnetic, so I can just put it in there and then tie all of these cables up in the back over here, and then voila, all of my RGB mess is hidden. So this is the actual like cable or the lid that goes on the top here. So I'm just gonna slot them in there just like that, and I'm just gonna leave that mess in there, because to be able to service this, let's say something's not gonna work, I'm not gonna come and just start to clip the zip ties and clip it together. Of course this is nicer, but actually if there's a way where we can just hide the mess and, you know, make it look nice but actually easily accessible, then I'd probably go with that route. So our SATA power goes in here, and then for the motherboard that needs SATA power as well. And in terms of fan headers, we've got, I'm gonna put these there. Now watch this. So this is all a big mess here, right? Everything is actually tied down, so when you open it, you kind of know, okay, where your cables are, what's going on. So we'll just slide this back, and watch this. Just push all the cables up there, boom, and it's sorted. All nice and clean, cable management done. Straps over there. There's one more SATA power actually, you know, free if you need to put anything else in there. Now look at this from this side. This looks absolutely beautiful. The only question now is about the GPU. What are we gonna put in there? So my initial thought was to put the ARC A770 Predator in here. And if we just check the size of this, just in terms of design, that looks very, very tiny to me. Doesn't that to you? This is a 3090. It's a little bit bigger, looks a bit better, but I think this one still would look quite cool in there. So you're suggesting 4080 CPU renderer for a change? No, 4070, 4080 ProArt, 7800 XT. We need a bit of a bigger GPU. Let me see what I have. So this is a 4070 Ti, which is quite big as well. Now that's a bit bigger, but I'm not happy with the design. The design looks random here. It's too round and doesn't fit with anything else here. I've got the 7900 XTX in there, but that's gonna be big. I think we're gonna go back to this, unless we put a blue GPU. What would that look like? Is that gonna be completely weird? Ooh, that looks really nice in here actually. A little bit of blue. We're gonna have a spark here with a sparkle in there. Nah, I feel like we might still gonna go with this A770 from ASETEK Predator. Now, as you can see, there is a GPU holder built in here, this one here, and you can move it up and down a little bit. I don't think our GPU will even fit in there. So as you can see, this is not even gonna fit in there. And I think when we're gonna go with this black theme, I don't think this blue is gonna fit there as nicely, because that's gonna be the only one out of this. I might have a different idea how to use this and what we're gonna do with that. But for now, I think this is what we're gonna go for. The GPU holder can be extended and taken out, which I'm gonna do now because it looks random in our build here when we don't have a GPU that's that big. But if you run one of those 4090s in here, that's definitely something you wanna have in there. Just to emphasize the point of the serviceability, as you can see, I don't have the GPU power cables right now, and they'll have to go somewhere over there. This GPU takes two 8-pin PCIe cables, and as you can see, what we can do is, shall we put it up, take the power cable out in there, slide the other one through as well. Okay, and now these two will just need to be connected to the power supply, which I can easily do just through here. Okay, and now let's sort these cables out as well. This was so much easier to sort just because I had a hole in here. And now let's put the lid back on. That's pretty cool. So here comes the first test turn on. Let's see if it actually works. One of the other things I really like is that this motherboard cover that's in here actually covers all of the like front panel Type C and Type A cable, as well as the ATX power really nicely. It makes it really nice. So let's plug some things in and see if it actually turns on. Okay, as you can see, the motherboard is already showing some kind of color. So now, is this plugged into the phone? Okay. Here goes nothing, and power. Uh-oh. These fans aren't working, which means I'll turn these off. Okay. Let me show you what's wrong. So, can you see this bit over here? Can you see how one of the stickers has folded inside there? So now, look, if I take this input corner sticker off, but the other one, can you see how that's gone in there? Which means it's not like it letting signal through there underneath. See, it had gone like somewhere there, and the last one didn't make contact. So I bet if we take this sticker off, okay, and now test 2.0, let's see, and everything is working. All fans are on. Let's see if this works as well. There we go, and here's the BIOS. If you hear a little whiz in the background, it's because the SSD fan there is running very loud. Power setting Intel base power limit is disabled. We've got a data there as that XMP profile. We're going to load that one. The power settings here, look at that. Air cooling 125 watts. Gives you nice options here. That's nice of ASRock. So what we go, advanced mode, auto driver installer. That's interesting. I'm going to press that enable. I just want to see what that's going to do. So what I'll do now is install Windows, add all the panels back on, and then I'll see you in a minute. So I've figured out and fixed a few problems of this PC. Firstly, the RGB. I'm not sure if you remember from the previous clips, you can actually see that this bottom strip, RGB strip that came with the kit, was only lit up to about here. But then this bit was all off. But now you can see it's all on in there. And the reason for that was because the motherboard hub, or the case hub that's on the top, the RGB hub, there is also a connector to connect it to the motherboard, like a 5-volt female ARGB, pin that you can just put onto the motherboard. When you do that, it kind of switches over to like the motherboard, maybe power delivery, rather than the SATA power that comes directly from the power supply to the whole hub and controls all of the RGB from there, which meant that probably didn't have enough power to just power all of these in a chain as well, because the top, the side, and then the bottom here, they're all in a chain of RGB, kind of a, daisy chain together. So that's why it wasn't working there. And I thought I had plugged something in wrong somewhere, but actually, as long as I pulled the motherboard header out from the pin, boom, they all started working. And I was like, that's how simple this is. Which brings me also to a point, which is the RGB controller. And I am so glad that Phanteks has this like controller on top of the PC case, which means that I don't have to run necessarily another software inside the PC to run the RGB. Right now, it's all just running from the case, and if I wanted to, I can just swap the RGB around different modes as well as different colors. But I've chosen the purple one, which is here. That means that I don't have anything running in the background, and even if the PC hasn't posted yet, it's actually running already the RGB colors. Now, in this case, because our motherboard has RGB and we've got RAM that has RGB as well, we do have to run certain softwares in there. We have to run the Acer software to have the RGB for the GPU, and then the ASRock, because the motherboard has RGB on the bottom there. As you can see, it shines on the bottom there. And then the RAM as well, which I have to control in there. But other than that, it is very, very nice to control the RGB on the case, which is another good point why your PC is more and easily serviceable. There's less things that actually have gone wrong. By just plugging all the RGB into the case, it's more serviceable, I guess. Do you agree? Let me know in the comment section below. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm actually testing all of the created benchmarks for this. So once this is complete, we'll come back. So then let's take a look at the benchmarks of this beautiful PC. I haven't done a lot of like big RGB PCs on the channel. I'm more like a non-RGB kind of person, you know, minimal, things like that. But with this all unified kind of RGB color and the way it looks, I'm actually very much liking it. I'm not sure about you, let me know what you think about the design and everything, but I think it's awesome that you can just build your own PC however you like it. And if you don't want to spend as much money and you want to get started somewhere, whatever budget you have, I've got build guides in the description below. Whatever your budget is, go check them out, especially if you're a creator. Because once you build your first PC, you're gonna build a lot more PCs. It's quite addictive. So then, let's take a look at first the CPU usage and how good does the cooling do with the 14700K. Now, the amazing thing here is, as you can see, my PC is idle, and you can see that the CPU package power draw is about 4 watts. 3.6 watts, 3 watts. That is absolutely insane, like idle power draw, and that's why Intel is like amazing at this. Now, AMD actually idles like 10 times higher than this, just idling there, which means that if your PC is not doing anything, if you're not using the PC or just like kind of being on your phone, Intel is much more power efficient. I've got a whole video on the channel if you want to go check that out, like between AMD and Intel power usage. But let's take a look at the 360mm cooler and let's see how well do we do here now then. Right, 280 watts, it's quite quiet, and we're 87 degrees. That is not bad. Not bad at all. 283 watts and we're 92 degrees. 34,000 points on Cinebench R23. I am actually very impressed. And now, as you can see, we're still not thermal throttling. This is what, like, 4th run? How many runs have we done? 4 runs now of Cinebench. And it's still, core temperature is 82 degrees. Package is a little bit higher. But the max of the core, well, one of them was 97 there, 96. 1P core is hot, but the rest of them are very, very good. So to be honest, that cooler is very, very good. Okay, now we're thermal throttling, finally. Or was it test 5? So that's very impressive indeed. So let's take a look at some of the benchmark results. So first of all, Puget Bench for Photoshop, and this is 0.93.7. So this is one of the older version of Puget Bench for Photoshop. And I know I've got 4800 megatransfers per second here for the RAM, but it's not actually, it's 64. If we go to the task manager, then you can see here our run speed, 64. We've got the iGPU and the Intel ARC A770, both of them, U770 and A770 running there. So they should be actually working in conjunction with each other, especially in Premiere Pro. For Photoshop, we're actually getting quite a high score, very high score, in fact, actually. For Photoshop, this is insane. So fast RAM, fast clock speeds, and the Intel GPU, dedicated GPU, really gives you like the highest scores you can get there. Then in Premiere Pro 0.98, you can see all the scores here for the system. I do want to say that our RAM capacity is bottlenecked, and so it was for Photoshop. These benchmarks actually use a little bit more than 32 gigabytes, but it's pretty good score. And as you can see, if you work with long GOP or interpolated scores, so that is the likes of H.264, H.265, or ProRes codecs, then this CPU and this PC there does very, very good job. Then Lightroom Classic, here's the score. If you want to compare to your own, highly recommend you go check out and just, you know, download the test and do it yourself so you can get the scores there. But I also did a test on the actual Puget Bench Creators app, which is now Puget Bench 1.0 for Photoshop. And there we get 9,499 points general for this PC. So if you want to download the app, it's super simple. If you've got Photoshop installed, just open the app, press start, go, and it does it. It's very, very simple. In Premiere Pro, we're getting 10,450 points for the standard overall score. And as you can see again, long GOP and infraframe scores very high there because of the iGPU. We get hardware acceleration for some of these codecs. But I'm just wondering, like, how good is this 10,450 score? So I looked on the results browser there, and we can see that this one is only 200 points higher. Very, very similar here. This is 13700K, but RTX 4070 with 64 gigabytes of RAM. So that's quite impressive. And we're not far off from the 7950X 16-core CPU from Ryzen with RX 7900 XT and 64 gigabytes of RAM. So a lot more RAM, a lot more power, and look at that score there. That's quite impressive score for this guy there. And there was one more very important thing that I wanted to tell you. What was the thing I was gonna say? It's the about PC building. Yeah, about PC building. The important, yes, yeah. Oh, there we go. So got it.